back to Continuing the Conversation, where we bring you authentic AI insights. Here's something that's been really bothering me, especially with back to school season kicking off in my house. Last week, I signed 8 different forms promising that my kids won't use AI for their schoolwork. 8. Meanwhile, at home, they're using CharmIQ, just like they did last year, to explore ideas, solve problems, and think through complex topics in ways I never could at their age. So I'm here literally signing documents that contradict what I know is best for my kids' cognitive development. And I know I'm not the only parent caught in this impossible situation. Today, we're tackling the great educational disconnect. And Rob, I need to ask you some hard questions about what we're actually doing to our kids and to ourselves as parents when we know we're not being completely honest with the school and with, people in the school that we actually respect.
Hey, Chelene, I've been hearing you talk about this I remember last year, or this year, it's kicking into full year again. I think we're going to flip the tables on this a little bit, and I get to ask you some questions on this. So how do you feel as a parent who's going through this situation right now, especially given the fact that you work in AI, you work with these platforms, your job is to help introduce people to this and help them think differently. So how do you feel about all that?
Yeah, well, thankfully for me, it's my second year going into it, but this year it hit me differently. I mean, I felt guilty last year, but the person I was last year isn't the person I am this year. And this year, my guilt is sort of turning to real anger and frustration. It sparked some really great conversations in my home. I have one child that's definitely a rule follower, but she's just in middle school, so she relies on Charm a little less. And her use of Charm is very interesting and different than my son, who's in high school, who was using it a lot more last year and a lot more this year. So now I'm going through all the emotions, right? So guilty, signing something I don't believe in, like I'm lying to teachers. And even though my kids are learning responsibly using these tools, and I encourage them, and I've seen such great transformation in them as students, I feel stress. I feel stress because I'm friends with some of the educators in my district. I respect them. They're great leaders. And so it creates this stress and parity, but it sparked great conversations. We had to have them again this year. One with my rule follower who was like, Mom, you're signing this paper. And I'm like, but honey, we know this tool helps you become a better, smarter, faster student. There is no cheating, right? I'm not giving you the tests and saying, here are the tests for next week. Please study them. We're not looking over at our neighbor. We're not copying right out of the book. So it's a mix of emotions. And this year it's really changed for me.
That's incredible. Thank you for that. So what I liked what you just said there is you really started to define what cheating means. And what's interesting is we don't sometimes have those conversations. We just say, hey, you can't use AI because of cheating. And without really defining, well, what is cheating? I would say one of the most things that we're seeing happen with the use of AI is kids are just literally taking verbatim results from something and going on. Before we started this podcast, Chelene and I were actually talking about encyclopedias. For those of us who are at least over 40, our life was you go to the library, you go in and you get an encyclopedia. And we had exactly the same situation happen there, which is you absolutely know the kid that got the book and literally copied it verbatim out of the thing. And all that's happened now is with the tools and technology, it's just gotten easier. Mm-hmm. So cheating is much easier than it ever was, but it's the same problem. We still need to talk to our children about what is cheating and why is cheating bad? Just because we give something a label, we also need to say why is that not useful? So I'd like to push back on that. How are your kids using this thing? Do you see them getting dumber using these tools, or what's going on?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When we first sat down last year and I really introduced my oldest son to Charm earlier on, because he's in high school and he went from middle school to high school, and you up your game there. And prior to working with you and at Charm, I was spending roughly around $650 a month on tutors. Mm-hmm. One for June, 2 or 3 for Charlie. And what I was able to do with Charm was introduce him to a platform that sort of replaced his tutors. And the first thing I taught him when I showed him the platform is you're no longer going to type, you're going to talk, right? So what I will say, if you're any parents listening, that's a great thing to introduce as you're talking about AI, because you get to hear the conversation. Yes. So I hear the conversation. So I I know if he's saying, and early on, he was prompting Charm like he did ChatGPT, because mind you, my son was using that before I introduced him to Charm. And so I would hear him kind of bark questions at the Charms and at the platform. And I was like, whoa, 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 we gotta like talk through this. This isn't a Google search engine. Think about this the same way you thought about your tutor.
Yes.
Talk to the platform the same way you talk to Ryan about math and Shelly about English, right? It's the same thing. And he was like, oh, it is? I said, yes, it's the same thing. So we had this great conversation about how to engage with the charms and how to use them. So I get to hear all the conversations. And there were times where I had to step in and say, I hear you're frustrated. You're barking at her because she's not giving you the exact information you want, because she's been trained not to do the work for you, but you encourage you to do the work yourself. So that was last year. This year, I'm seeing that they ask better questions. They're thinking more critically about the answers, and they're more curious about the content and not less, right? It's like having a smarter tutor on call 24/7, and they are engaging with the charm in a way that they would engage with their tutor. So one thing that's interesting is last year, Charlie really struggled in English, and he felt like some of the books he was reading were boring. He didn't understand them. They weren't interesting. And he would often say, my teacher, she's so boring. She's been teaching for like 100 years. And I feel like she's like not interesting and she doesn't understand. And so what we did was we engaged with his charm to get a deeper understanding of one of the characters in the book he thought was boring. And she really helped him see the character, relate to the character, and have empathy for the character. And he said, whoa, like she helped me understand this story and this character better than any lecture I've had in my class. It really was the light bulb, what made it all worth signing my life away on those forms worth it.
That is amazing. There's so much to unpack that you just went through. I hope folks take a moment and almost re-listen to what it is that you just said. So let me try in a couple of different ways here. One is, if you listen to all of the industry leaders, the CEOs of the models that are out there, the Sam Altmans, the Amadeus, the Dennis Sabases, and so forth, everyone always highlights the fact that AI can really help in education. And on the flip side, we're hearing all of these schools absolutely ban this from education. And it's just like, what does that mean? So you have one side who's producing something for education, and another side that's actively banning it from education. So let's put a period in that and just say, wow, that's pretty crazy. The second was an interesting statement about the fact that you're using AI to replace a tutor, a human tutor. And what's interesting is, I think that, just let's deep dive for a second on the notion of a tutor. Like, if you think about what artificial intelligence is, and if you go back to what we constantly say here, which is, again, it's literally in the name. It's called artificial intelligence. It's not called artificial tool. It's not called artificial automation. It's not called whatever. And we're constantly looking for examples to help people understand what is the difference between a tool and intelligence. I think you really nailed it there. A tutor is really what differentiates. So if you think about an encyclopedia, that's a tool. That's a thing that you can like literally go in kind of one way. You go in, you find it, you pull it out. Whereas a tutor is not that. You can ask it the questions. You can engage with the human. They have insights. They have stories built up around how to do these things. I think that's a perfect way to think about, how is AI not a tool? It is truly intelligence. And I think you said the right thing to your children, which is exactly that. Don't think of it like Google. Absolutely don't think of it like Google. Think of it like your tutor in exactly the same way. If you have a question, if you need a deep dive on something, and so forth. So I first want to just say hats off to you, Chelene, for like really paving the way both for your children and for the listening audience to understand about, like, how is this different? How is this tool that everyone is saying that we have different than what we had in the past? How is intelligence really helping? So those are beautiful. Thank you so much for those things. And the second is I think the reason why everyone talks about AI as a amazing way to educate people is that the challenge in the classroom is one teacher and number of children, and maybe as large as 30 or 40, is that you can't get that one-to-one direct. If you have a question or you have a particular thing that you don't understand that maybe everyone else does, and you don't want to ask the dumb questions, that You can now do that with this tool, and
Yes.
the teachers should be using it to supplement in that way. Just thank you for that. And again, if folks should re-listen to what Chelene said, because I think it paves the way that we should be thinking about this.
Absolutely. You know what's interesting? I saw on LinkedIn a post that like really was an eye opener for me. And it kind of just really reinforced my own thing that I'm doing at home. So AI usage among students dropped 70% when school lets out. Low all summer and then spikes again in September. Kids are using AI more during the school year than and not less. So what is that statistic telling us?
It's clearly being used. AI is ChatGPT. All of these tools are clearly being used. I have some friends of mine who have gone back for continuing education, and it's rampant in there, both in both the good and the bad ways.
Sure.
So we're seeing it all over the place. Everyone's hiding it. And
Mhm.
I think we need to be having the discussions. We're in the standard place that we were. Let me just draw the standard analogy. And Chelene and I were talking about this before the podcast, which is, we all started with encyclopedias. That was the cheat du jour. I do
Yep.
remember us all having the discussion about what does it mean to plagiarize and copy. I remember when calculators were first introduced. We had that whole discussion about whether or not a calculator and if people are never going to learn math again because you have a calculator. And then I remember shortly thereafter, we had the graphing calculators, and that was just absolutely going to be the worst possible thing that we could ever do. Because why would you ever learn to graph again because of blah, blah, blah. And I could go on and on with just the things that I've seen in my short time on this planet. But I think this is just another version of that. I think, unfortunately, given the way the internet works today, given the way that information is disseminated now, everything has to be extremely big, extremely loud, extremely divisive. This wasn't like that when I can guarantee you that if the world looked like it did today when the calculators came out magically back then, it would look exactly the same. So we've been through this. We got through it. I don't know why we didn't learn from those moments, to be totally honest with you. I don't know why we're struggling so hard with this one. The answer is the usual one, right? Which is it's education. And it's crazy that education needs education. So it's
Yes.
crazy that the educators are the ones struggling so hard with the right way to frame and message and understand and so forth. And look, I can't blame educators. I was married to an educator for decades, and I was party to all of the struggles of all of the unpaid labor that they have to do and so forth. So I hear you. You don't have time to grade the students' quizzes, much less learn about what the devil's going on in the world. We need to have these open discussions, open forums, and so forth. Just as we had the exact same situation, I will raise my hand and say that I absolutely cheated on one or more tests in high school with a graphing calculator. And I didn't end up being a dumb person because of that. It was just at the time, I was focused on one particular area that I wanted to learn. And there was this thing that I couldn't catch up on. And it was just great, I will learn that thing later. And in
Yeah.
fact, I did. I'm great at graphing and using graphing calculators now. So we should talk to our kids. This should be in the open. And I hate to bring up the bad 3-letter word here, but it's the same thing with sex education. Don't let your kids learn about it behind the back of the 7. Have the discussions with them. Talk to your kids about AI, responsible AI use.
Right.
Just as you talk about everything, you as a parent, you need to be having those discussions.
You absolutely. And I feel really lucky that I had to dive so deep with my kids because I was signing papers saying I wouldn't do it. And the rule follower in my house was like, she uses it a little bit here and there. She's more conversational with the AI, more about curiosity and asking questions. She also uses it a lot for math to check to be sure. It's interesting.
Absolutely.
My daughter struggled in math all through elementary school, and we put her in a very expensive, very well-known tutoring center for math, and it really helped. Mostly, I will say, mostly helped her with her confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we introduced her to CharmIQ and stopped going to the tutoring center, it was a great transition
Nice.
for us. But now this year she tested into high math.
Nice.
And I
Amazing.
think that's because A, confidence, B, knowing she has someone at home to support her. And that is not me because unfortunately I am not very good at middle school math. But her charm is. And so what happens is it's very easy. She works through the problem. She takes a picture, she uploads it, and she checks. Now, this year, her high math teacher has put the answer key onto the Google Classroom so the kids have the answer. So, what I'm seeing is even more conversation about the transition, right, to high math, more around conversation and learning and ways to memorize things and digging deep into to how to learn it, right? So, it's very tutor central in my world and in my home. Did I have to have different conversations with both kids? Yes, because they're different, they learn different, and they use the artificial intelligence differently.
Totally.
My son still often looks for the quick fix and the quick answer because his load is heavier. So the good news is it's talked to text. So I get to hear the conversation and I get
Amazing.
to coach and develop him and reinforce what he's doing both positively and negatively. So I know there's parents listening. So kids are using AI. Your kids are using AI pretty much. I'd probably guarantee 90% of them are, but schools are banning it. So what's really happening here? Are we creating some kind of weird underground learning economy? And not only is it happening in the schools, it's happening at home.
Yeah, this is based on what we talked about last week. The exact same thing is happening in the workforce. So whether it's kids at school or adults in the workforce,
Yeah.
there is absolutely this shadow AI thing going on right now. Your organization like has these ridiculous stringent requirements. And as we said last week, there are things that you should be aware of. Again, just as we said with kids, there's responsible ways to use AI. Again, things around security and PII and IP and things like that that you do need to be aware of. But once you're through that hurdle, you should be able to have active conversations with your educators in school and with your company at work and so forth. And we are absolutely creating this shadow environment right now. And I would say, again, media is not helping in any way, shape, or form about this stuff. I am not seeing good dialogues about this. I'll just be honest. I think I listen to lots of podcasts and I listen to lots of things. We are the only people that are talking about it in this way. And I'm finding that, as you said early on, this year feels more stressful to you than last year. And I would say the exact same thing is true with me. I would have thought that with momentum, people would be understanding more about how to work with these things and understand. And I am absolutely feeling the stress this year because we are not being heard. People are not understanding what's going on, and it seems to be pointing the wrong way rather than the right way. So yeah, this is a bad time. And again, especially with your kids, in your situation, you had to explain to your children, like, why is it okay in this particular case for you to like not be telling the truth about the fact that your children are using AI. And this is just one of these cases where like you have to go against the system because like the system is just not in the right place. Like during these times of change, it's just not
I
right yet.
I use that exact same analogy. I said they're just not there yet. They don't know about CharmIQ. They don't know the way that we're using this artificial intelligence isn't for cheating, it's for learning. And my son, we had to have mock conversations, right? We had to have a mock conversation. If a teacher says to you, they look on your IP and they see you're logged into charmiq.ai, right? That was a big conversation. This is my tutor, my tutoring tool. This reinforces what I'm learning in the class. This makes things interesting for me.
Yeah.
Please call my mom so we can have a conversation about it. But he has his elevator pitch to describe what the platform is and how we use it in our household.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So just to say, like Chelene, again, I hope everyone listening is just hearing your talking points, because one of the things I hope that we're getting across with this podcast in general is like how to think about these things that are going on. And I think, Chelene, you nailed it, which is you walk through your situation with your kids, you talk them through their elevator pitch. Like kudos to you. Again, super awesome. Thank you, Chelene.
Yeah. And I know the educators, the teachers, the principals, even the district folks, if I could just sit with them and kind of give them my 2 cents on what this tool is, how we use it in our home, and what it's done for my children, they would say, wow, every home needs this. There's some homes that need this so badly because
Yes.
A, maybe the parents aren't engaging. B, they're relying too much on using artificial intelligence as incorrectly,
Yes.
which then translates to cheating. So I know that my educators are going to this to them. I want them to hear it. I want them to see it. I want them to know it, because what's happening today is so backwards. Because if AI is clearly helping our kids during school, why are we fighting it? And what should we be doing instead? I would love to give you the forum to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything that we've said, I think, is what it needs to be in a nutshell. Like we need to talk about what is cheating before we just say no, because people are going to use AI to cheat. We can't use it. Okay, so what are the facets of this thing called cheating that we're trying to prevent? Is it just simply plagiarism? Like, what is it? Let's have that discussion. I would just say, like, if there's a put on the like think like Rob hat, let's talk through what the words are that we're using here first. And
Yes.
I don't we just use the word cheating all the time without, like, what facets of this thing are we talking about? Like, and even in the workplace, like, are you cheating on your work because, like, it's helping you accelerate? Like, and again, this is sometimes the things that really confuse me is, like, we teach kids, like, we're literally teaching kids, don't use the accelerant, that if you are in industry right now, you're getting fired because you're not using it. So it's like, what does this mean? On one side, we're telling kids no, and on the other side, we're telling, if you don't, you're fired. So, like, when does the transition happen? Again, I have some friends that are continuing education and they're in college right now, or they're doing their masters, et cetera, right now. And the transition ain't there because they're being told, absolutely do not use AI for any of the work that you're doing. They're not having this discussion. Though I will admit, I have been privy to listening in on a really good professor that actually was encouraging people to use it, and specifically how to use it correctly in the ways that you were just saying. There's outliers of the educators, but again, there's no transition. You're in school, cannot use it, cannot use it, cannot use it. All of a sudden you get an industry, you must use it. So, like, when are people learning it? Like, where is this happening? So we're in a bad state with respect to how to do this, but it doesn't have to be. I think if you just re-listen to everything that Chelene said in this episode so far, it is really clear as to what the process is. And maybe we should put one of those in the notes for this podcast, is really just to, like, what is the worksheet? What are the words to use? Like, let's first discuss what cheating is. How does that change throughout time? How do we think about it in the context of AI? One of the things that you said earlier is this whole notion of talk with your AI, and the fact that you could listen in on your children and you can have those discussions. I know we talked a podcast ago of, like, to me, this is a beautiful opportunity as a parent that you normally don't get to listen to how your child interacts with other people and other things. Like, if you had a tutor, usually they go off to that tutor and, like, you don't know what's going on. And now it's in the home and your child is communicating with this thing. That's amazing time for you to then have those sidebars and basically say, hey, let's talk about how this works. And then the ability for this to completely change some of the behaviors that we find so challenging when we go into the workforce, which is, like, how do you break down problems? How do you communicate well with people? How do you do all these things? We have the opportunity to really push these things forward, and we're not. So my fingers are crossed that by the time we have this exact same conversation in a year, that Chelene and I are not stressed out by the fact that no one's listening to all this stuff. The fact that we're sitting here going, thank God it all finally came back together.
Yes, right. I think for parents listening, and I have like a year head start on this from last year, but trust what you see and hear at home. This does give you such an amazing opportunity to hear your kids engage with the tutor. And that's really what we call, well, my kids call them charms, but they'll, with their tutors, I get to hear what that engagement, I see how they're interacting, I hear what they're talking about, and teach responsible use of AI yourself. And it's okay if you might be using ChatGPT at work or underground or whatever, and maybe you're still barking orders at it like a Google search box. Educate yourself on responsible use of AI. Ask your AI, like, I want to introduce this to my kids in a responsible way. What?
Yes. Just don't forget just to say that. Thank you, Chelene, for bringing that in. Just as your children can use it to help learn situations, we as adults can use it and be like, hey, how do I approach this? I'm in an environment in which this is happening. This is happening. How do I approach my children? And I would just say I can hear a little bit of that sometimes in what you even said in this discussion here today, Chelene, is I can see that you did the responsible thing, which is you sat down probably with your parenting charm and you're just like, how do I approach this problem? And you can see the changes that it makes.
Yes, and it has such a good layout. We will put something in the notes for parents that just want to quickly grab something, but help your kids understand the gap between the school rules and cheating and real world skills. It's really easy. Your charms will do that. Your ChatGPT will do that. You need to start engaging with your artificial intelligence as humans, right? And asking for advice and asking for, kind of things to help you kind of grasp this, because we promise you, even if you're not using AI today or just a little bit, your kids are, especially if you have high schoolers, even middle schoolers, they are. And us as parents and those of us that have the relationship with artificial intelligence and understand all the benefits of being a better, stronger, faster version of yourself, advocate for better policies, right? Focus on preparing them for the actual future. Like Rob said, this is the technology of their generation. This is it. So we shouldn't be banning it. We should be collectively embracing it. And for our educators listening, and if I forwarded this to you, I appreciate you. I respect you. I want to help you. I know it's scary. It feels scary. We don't want the robots coming to teach the children, right? But I am here as a resource, Rob. We are here as resources. We love when people engage with our content. We love when people ask us questions because then we can build on that. So if you want help, if you need to know where to get started, reach out to us. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us here. You can find us on CharmIQ.ai. And we're here as a resource. So, Rob, any last words around AI and the banning and the using it or not using it? I know we've talked a lot, but any closing thoughts on your side?
Just what we said earlier, which is use the AI in the way that you're supposed to be teaching your kids, which is use it to help you in these times. Bring in different voices, different ideas. Remember that you don't have to bark at orders. You can ask it questions about things.
Yes.
You can ask it, you can tell it your situation that you're in and ask for help. And again, as Chelene just said, we're here. Please. Literally, the reason that we do this every single week is because I lose sleep at night worrying about the fact that people just aren't understanding. And I am under a lot of stress with the fact that we are not getting the engagement that we're looking for. We're not getting the conversations that we're getting. I will admit, once we get to a one-on-one situation, then we have the most engaging conversations that we can possibly have. And unfortunately, we can't do that. There's one Chelene and there's one Rob, and that's why we have this podcast. So yeah, the only thing in summary is if you found this interesting, please share this with your friends and your family and your educators and so forth, and have them reach out to us, because we are literally doing this because we care and we are trying to make a change. So
yeah, and
thank you.
I will say one thing, and one thing that was interesting. My older son came home to me the other day. We have open house this week, and he said, "Oh, you're going to love this teacher." I said, "Oh, why?" She goes, "She talks about AI." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." And she encouraged us in our classroom to use it like we would a reference material, like we would, going to the library and checking out a book. She just wants us to tell her when we use AI, she's not going to check our papers under the super secret, thing that finds the copy and paste, but she wants to engage with us. And I'm like, that's so amazing. He's like, yeah, she's a new teacher. She's real young. And so I know, like, whether you're a new educator or an older educator, there are some educators embracing AI. And I want to thank you for that. Let's keep that going. I hope next year we're in a different place and educators and districts have opened their arms and given a big hug to AI, because it is truly a gift that we can give our kids, not only to make them better, stronger, faster students, to make them more engaged and to make them feel more confident in the education process. And guess what? When they graduate, whether they go to college or they go right into a job, they'll be using this technology to do the job that they're doing. So there has to be that bridge. There has to be that education process. And we should be the ones teaching them the right way and the wrong way, right? Just same thing with the internet. So Rob, thank you for letting me process this frustration out loud. And parents everywhere, if you are caught in the same impossible bind, know that you're not alone and there's some things you can do. And educators, please don't make us choose between honesty and helping our kids succeed. It's a tough choice and a tough conversation to have. They're not trying to cheat. At least my kids aren't trying to cheat. Yes, kids cheat. Kids will cheat, whether it's with AI or without, right? They're going to cheat, but they're trying to learn with the tools of their generation. And what better people to teach them than our educators and us as parents? So for parents, you're not failing your kids by letting them use AI. You are not. You're preparing them for reality. So here is my ask for anyone that's listening. I will be sharing this episode with educators and with the school board in the district in my community. And so we need your help. Share this with your networks, with family, with friends, with educators. If you know someone who's a teacher, a principal, someone that volunteers at the school, please share this and comment with your own experiences. And if you're signing these same forms that I am, which I'm sure you are, what do you see? Like, what do you do with your kids? How do you have this conversation? It starts with us, but let them know you don't want the heaviness on their shoulders for them to think they're cheating, because they're not, as long as they're using this in the right way. So please, the links below for CharmIQ are below other conversations we've had. Please comment, link, and share. We would love to hear from you, and we'll continue this conversation next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye.